Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 1, Plaguestone, Sweet Plaguestone. Thank you so much for joining us. Now let's bring back our wonderful cast. We have Eldritch as Khan, the Bloody Rizzolo.
Oh, it's always great to be here.
Shane as Umbromancer Zavid.
Hello, everyone.
And Elliot as Reese the Heartseeker.
Hi, I realized I forgot to put Reese's wig on.
And as always, I'm Lumby Bronzearm and will be your DM for today. Last season, Lux Et Umbra reunited in Druma to attend the coronation of Queen Daniela Erion. The joyful occasion was interrupted by rocks falling from the sky. This ill omen was another sign of the approaching conjunction. Realizing that they were going to need further allies, Lux Et Umbra made their way to the city of Corvosa. With the help of their friends, the Gardeners of Corvosa, long-cold diplomatic relations were rekindled with Queen Cressida Croft. She had her doubts as to the true effects of the conjunction. However, after the gambling boats at Eel's End were nearly destroyed by rampaging water elementals, coupled with unseasonably bountiful harvests, Corvosa's monarch and guardian could no longer sit idly by. Having added an economic powerhouse to their list of friends, Lux Et Umbra set off to the town of Fogton, Dirge's home city. A rousing good time was had by all, especially Demirius, who partook in many a cold one. Having taken in the local hospitality, a trek atop Mount Fogton was their next goal, having been whispered the name Beat Els. An old eccentric dwarf, Beat lived alone atop a snowy, fog-thick mountain, but he had something our heroes required. A powerful and rare alchemical ingredient not easily acquired, the scale of a gold dragon. After much discussion of the upcoming apocalypse, Beat was willing to part with 5. The final reagent in paw, Khan was able to craft the elusive blood echo elixir, allowing Dani to sniff out her siblings. Seeing the dire situation the world had found itself during his long time atop Mount Fogton, Beetels revealed that he was in actuality Betelgetrax, an ancient silver dragon. Offering what knowledge he could, Betelgetrax opened his long-dormant dragon gate, leading to the hold of Belkzen. There, Lux Et Umbra found themselves on the needle-like Firewatch peaks among a tribe of otter people known as the Ottari. While getting their bearings, they were attacked by a massive eagle covered head to toe in surgically attached armor. Something strange was afoot. Descending the mountain, Lux Et Umbra made their way to the orcish city of Wyvernsting, where they finally found Dani's other lost brother, Mythonar Erion. A deal was struck with Chief Hunduk's half-man. Safely return his daughter Toba, and Mythonar goes free. A strange gnomish church had popped up recently within the town, offering free mechanical prosthetics to any who needed them, quite a sought-after service amongst the orc people. Knowing a cult when he smelled one, Zavid began to tug at the thread, and it quickly began to unravel. Following what few leads they had, Lux Et Umbra headed south, meeting Gazkul Demonkiller, an eccentric old orc shepherd. Discussions of forgotten gods, mechanically enhanced animals, and ancient orcish magics were had over mutton. Wanting revenge for the death of his sheep, Gazkul helped Lux Et Umbra infiltrate the cult's secret underground compound deep beneath the Kodar Mountains. No less than an avalanche of sheep was required to make their way inside, but once in, Reese's training kicked in, allowing easy navigation through the winding, narrow hallways. It quickly became apparent that the leader of this cult, Artifex Glastwick Finibus, was bent on releasing Rovagug during the conjunction. With his mechanical monstrosities, the mad gnome attacked with the full force of Cassandalee's divine design, but was laid low by the might that is Lux Et Umbra and their allies. With one more Erion sibling to find, and the conjunction swiftly approaching, can the coming onslaught of the dread Cabal be stopped? Today. Last time, Lux Et Umbra set off from Druma back home towards the town of Plaguestone. Wanting to try out a scientific experiment, Zavid requested some steeds be brought aboard the royal yacht. As it snaked down the Canerica River, the DMS Everlight was brought to a stop. All mounted their horses as Zavid's shadowy magics allowed the horses to walk on water. Khan's mount was a little slow to learn and bucked her off. However, she stayed dry due to the water walk spell. Swooping in from the east was a winged creature waving a white flag. Minola, matriarch of the Conerica Harpies, had come to offer her thanks to Lux Et Umbra for moving her clamor further east, as there was sudden, bountiful game. It quickly became apparent that this was due to the effects of Brethida the Cradle. Sorry, I lost my space. And its recent alignment. Manola was warned about the upcoming conjunction with Abalon the horse, as their prey will become more aggressive and dangerous. Lux Et Umbra kept on trotting down the river upon their water-walking steeds until the small town of Duskpawn came into view. The horses were unloaded, and the DMS Everlight was returned to Druma. Wandering around trying to find a carriage, many strange whispers were heard. Rumors of magic going odd. On the outskirts of town, a familiar bridge stood before everyone. As they began to cross, their good friend Smush Stuff, now a major in the Druman military, greeted them from his guard barracks. As the old friends caught up, an absent-minded young sorcerer fell into the river, not watching where she was going. After being helped out of the water, she introduced herself as Rabine the Rad and her raccoon familiar Blamfeld. On her way to the Druman Mages Academy, Rabine was running away from her hometown, where her newfound surging magical powers had caused damage to some fishing boats. Now armed with the knowledge of the conjunction, and knowing why strange things had been happening to her, Rabine and Blamfeld bid Lux Et Umbra adieu. A ways down the road, finally, the town of Plaguestone crested the horizon. Needing a cold one, Lux Et Umbra stopped by the feed mill. Con and Zavid were happy to see their old friends and introduced them to Reese and Frag, group members added since last Plaguestone was visited. Back at Shadow Valley, it was decided to test the defenses of the Bold Ones. Brick and Fork passed with flying metallic colors, having installed new traps and somehow managing to hear both Reese and Con attempting to sneak up on them. The homecoming was a joyous one, and all were shocked at how quickly the kobolds had grown in power. It seems their devotion to Sarenrae, the Dawn Dragon, as their odd interpretation of the dogma has them call her, and their diet of Chilaxian Reapers, Frostberries, and a multitude of mushrooms has blessed them. Their scales had taken on the colors of various dragons, Fork the Gold, Brick the Copper, Sugarwanter the Silver, and Jimothy the Green. With Osirion on the horizon, Lux Et Umbra has decided to take a short break to gather their strength, resources, and courage. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 3, Interrogation. Last time, Lux Et Umbra took a much-needed rest at their home of Shadow Valley. Frag took in his new surroundings, enjoying a solid breakfast for the first time in years. Taking a liking to him, Sugarwanter, the silver kobold, gifted him 2 less conspicuous outfits to wear. Deep in her laboratory, Con learned to brew a new virulent poison from her new 6-legged rat familiar, whom she has decided to name Pipette. So consumed with her alchemy was Con, she did not hear Noala sneak up behind her. A loving embrace was shared by the tall blonde elf and the brown-furred Isoki. It was not long before Zavid, Reese, and Frag joined them in the laboratory. As today was the day, Lux Et Umbra crafted the brain cylinder for Ilkana. It took the combined efforts and minds of everyone to construct this magical device. Between Frag's ingenuity, Reese's artful hand, Zavid's necromantic knowledge, and Khan's preternatural knack for invention, a brilliant machine was built. The following day, the magically preserved head of Ilkana Alinor, White Mother of Isker, was presented. Once again, teamwork won the day, as all of Lux Et Umbra successfully removed the Banshee's brain and installed it into its new magimechanical home. Upon waking, Ilkana was disoriented and confused. Not knowing where she was, Zavid taunted her a bit until it became clear to Ilkana that she is trapped within her own mind. Her anger rattled the glass of her new prison, but the immense power she had in Unlife is no more. As Lux Et Umbra admired their handiwork, Brick and the Copper Kobold came running in, breathless, spouting some nonsense about pushy lightning in the forest. Beckoning to follow, Brick took off like a shot to the forest. Deep in the woods, Khan quickly realized that a ley line had been ripped open, but only Zavid understood its cause. The alignment of Aposte the Messenger, the planet that most strongly affects arcane magics. Using his knowledge of rituals, Zavid condensed the ley line rip down into a singularity, pushing the energy back to the plane of magic. Back at Shadow Valley, the Bold Ones were being attacked by elementals made of pure arcane power. Leaping into action, Khan quickly discovered the mana elemental's biggest weakness, being stabbed repeatedly in a vital location. However, their unstable energies blasted out to harm her in turn, trapping our heroes within a wall of force. With their mechanical power in overdrive, Frag wall jumped up and out of the magical prison, joining in the fray once more. Taking the attention of an enemy away from the weak kobolds, Reese saved Sugarwanter from a sizzly fate. As the last remaining mana elemental phased in and out of existence, Cabriri's favored cleric rocketed himself through it by casting Zavid's double jump. Shadow Valley was saved, yet this is only a taste of what is to come. Welcome to the Bard's Playhouse presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 4, On the Road Again. Last time, Lux Et Umbra had some long-term plans bear fruit. Having removed the brain of Ilkena Alinor and placed it inside a magimechanical jar, it was time for answers. Zavid cast a zone of truth around the White Mother, ensuring she could tell no falsehoods. Though indignant at first, it was not long before Ilkena began to realize how much had been hidden from her by her divine patrons Urgathoa and Shax. The cracks in her faith formed via a combination of Triaxis the Wanderer's influence and the glibness of Lux Et Umbra. Later that evening, Lux Et Umbra communed with their old friend Dirge Mountainhoof, who now lives with the Blessed Lightning Druids. An orc of few words, Dirge was quick to reveal the ancient secrets of the Awaken ritual. After the campfire communication, visitors to Shadow Valley hailed Lux Et Umbra from beyond the tall gate. The two travelers introduced themselves as Layla and Rosemary Willowblossom, a halfling couple who had recently moved into the nearby villa of Veteran's Folly. Layla explained that she is a clocksmith who opened a shop in town. Her nephew had begun following a bad crowd of pickpockets, which worried her. The boy, Willamar, was planning to break into her shop to steal a valuable cuckoo clock the hoodlums could then fence for cash. This is where Lux Et Umbra came in. Layla requested they help her make the boys fail in their heist. But not only fail, they needed to be embarrassed, frightened, and humiliated so that Willamar would never do such a thing again. A plan was hatched, and traps were set. After dusk, the twist artists, as they called themselves, showed up to the clock shop, right on time. The inexperienced roustabouts managed to avoid Reese's tripwire at the top of the stairs by sheer dumb luck. However, once Willamar grabbed their prize, Khan's Rube Goldberg machine was sprung. A barrel of paint and bags of feathers were dumped over the heads of the older boys, only barely missing Willamar. Using magic and his ether spider familiar wisp, Zavid filled them with a fear they had never known. The twist artists tripped the stairs trap on the way up, scrambling over each other in their hurry to escape the haunted clock shop. Before Willamar could run into the forest, Lux Et Umbra explained that this was simply a lesson being taught to a boy about to make the worst decision of his life. And that's why you don't steal cuckoo clocks. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 5, Somewhere Beyond the Sea. Last time, Lux Et Umbra prepared to leave Shadow Valley once again. Sharing a nice breakfast with the Bold Ones and Nawala, the morning passed with pleasant chit-chat. Unlike after coronation, all were able to say their goodbyes this time. In their horse-drawn carriage, Lux Et Umbra set off down the well-worn road. On a rest area near a cool river was found the caravan of the merchant Tamley Grint. The untimely poisoning death of Bort Bargith was the event that brought Lux Et Umbra together in the first place, so a joyous reunion was had. Ulf and Ulf were impressed by how pumped up Khan and Zavid had become. Reese and Frag made quick friends via the universal language of arm wrestling. While Lux Et Umbra and Tamley's caravan had a great time, from the surrounding wood came a yell from a mysterious man with a sword in hand. Demanding the gold from the caravan to give to the poor, the mysterious brigand introduced himself as Cutlass Crow. Aiding the highwaymen were the Frolicsome Feathers, Caesar Corvus, and Cardinal Charlotte. A rousing fisticuffs broke out, but the thieves had clearly bitten off much more than they could chew. Zavid paralyzed Caesar, putting the fear of Cabriri in his heart. Using the power of the purse, Khan paid off Charlotte with a small sack of gold, a pittance to the noble rat. Knowing his own strength, Reese decided to simply punch his foes rather than hacking him to pieces. The leader of the bandits, Cutlass Crow, at last knew he was defeated as he was held aloft by above the campfire by the arm of Frag. Showing their new android orc friend that they were indeed not the baddies, Lux Et Umbra allowed the Frolicsome Feathers to leave with their lives, and a lesson on how to better rob from the rich and give to the poor. Tamley, Glunda, Ulf, and Ulf were ever grateful for being saved once again by their longtime friends. Back on the road once more, our heroes headed south towards the city of Almas, Khan's hometown. Beaming in the familiar locale, pointing out the local sites and histories, the Isoki led her group to the Golden Eyrie. Contracts were signed, insurance was purchased, and a massive spiral staircase was ascended. At the top of the spire was Reginald Cormoth, leader of the Alman Air Force, and his flock of griffins. After a brief lesson, Lux Et Umbra climbed into their saddles and flapped away into the wild blue yonder. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 6, If I Can Make It There. Last time, Lux Et Umbra took off from the Golden Eyrie high atop the town of Almas. Mounted upon griffins, they soared above the inner sea towards the Isle of Kortos. The salt breeze in their hair, the waves lapping at their heels. A pleasant flight was had by most. As they flew, Reese noticed a playful dolphin pop its head above the shoals. Curious at first, the sea creature splashed around, jumping in and out of the water. Though Zavid was worried, his concern quickly grew to terror as the dolphin leapt from the water and took to the sky on feathered wings. As quickly as it appeared, the dolphin soon absconded into the depths, only to return with an entire school of its fellows. Not wanting to miss an opportunity such as this, Con and Reese began to play with the sky dolphins, flying around and performing aerial flips. As the fun-loving cetaceans formed rings in the air with their bodies, Con's old circus training came rushing back. Controlling her griffin Birdie Holly with the skill of a master rider, all were amazed at the grace of the show. Having had their fun, the sky dolphins dove back to their watery home. A short distance later, Zavid spotted a floating island high above the surface. As it came into view, a sign became visible reading, "Welcome, Cloud Cabaret, one night only, Desna's chosen bard, the champ." That's right, the elf, the myth, the legend, Elvish Presley was in the building. Lux Et Umbra decided they and their griffins could use a rest and landed outside the floating building. Within was a club filled with people, drinks, and music. Settling into the VIP area, drinks in hand, the opening act was already well underway. As the main event began, Elvish Presley blasted out his greatest hits to the explosive crowd. Croony love songs and poppy nonsense aside, a few stray, cryptic lines made their way to Reese's ear. Hints of the coming apocalypse, whispers of potential allies, suggestions of the enemy's strategy. After the show, Lux Et Umbra mounted up once more and headed out. During the last leg of their flight, Zavid spotted a shipwreck near the shore, with a light coming from within. Below the surface were huge, raging water elementals, foaming at the mouth, alongside sharks of truly massive scale. A fearsome battle was had, but Lux Et Umbra triumphed. Realizing these creatures had been affected by the alignment of Breath of the Cradle, it was truly a mercy killing. Within the sunken ship were small fish and vegetation, but also a small room with a pocket of air. Shockingly, a man was still living within, surviving off of the centuries-old wine and premium artisan cheeses the ship was hauling. With a little bit of magic and a fine bag of holding, Lux Et Umbra was able to safely remove both the sailor and all of the unspoiled merchandise. Taking to the sky once more, the capital city of Absalom awaits. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 7, Vacation's End. Last time, Lux Et Umbra arrived at the capital city of Absalom. Having saved Joseph Hazelwood from a wrecked merchant ship, the first stop was to let him off safely. Joseph was taken to Love's in the Gruyere, an artisan cheese shop owned by a single-minded gnome woman named Bree, the Cheese Wizard. Although her precious cheese was lost to the waves, and Frag's bag of holding, Bree welcomed everyone to her shop. Zavid was overwhelmed by the sheer quantity, variety, and quality of the cheese here. Officially on vacation, he dropped quite a few gold coins on a massive cheese flight sampler. Having dropped off Bree's employee and explained what happened to her beloved shipment, Lux Et Umbra stopped for the night at the Inn and Out. Their overexcited waiter, the Tad Man, convinced Con and Frag to attempt the Orc Challenge. 2 people, 4 pounds of bacon, 2 pounds of barbecue sauce in 1 hour. Powering through the mountain of meat and washing it down with centuries-old vintage wine, the Mechano-Orc and Isoki went down as legends of Absalom history, getting their sketches tacked upon the wall. The next morning, Zavid felt the effects of Triaxis nudging him towards not getting along with Frag, so the group decided to split up for their day around the city. Con and Frag walked around town, gathering information about strange goings-on, hearing rumors about a group of down-on-their-luck goblins being roughed up by a group of fundamentalist Sarenulia worshippers. Finding where the goblins live was a simple matter, and it quickly became apparent that they attempted to integrate into Absalom's society by accepting Sarenulia, against the dogma of the church. As Con and Frag helped boost the security of the Crooked Toes goblins' homes, Zavid and Reese walked to Prophet Square, the religious center of Absalom. Within the square were 3 prophets of hugely different deities, each giving rousing sermons to a crowd. Each told truths, but not the entire story. Healing the weave, the need to prepare for war, and a message of unity. Reese quickly paid a printmaker to update the conjunction pamphlets and handed them out as Zavid took to the pedestal. Silence fell over the crowd as his words pulled together people from all walks of life, explaining why the world had gone so crazy as of late. Reuniting with Frag and Con, Zavid and Reese made their way back to the Goblin tribe. Within the abandoned theater, the Cricketoes' de facto leader, Velking, explained that the fundamentalist Serenites disapproved of their interpretation of their deity's dogma. As this conversation happened, the doors were smashed open as 4 dwarves, armed and armored, marched in with weapons drawn. A short standoff ensued, with the Serenite forces of Garrus Bluehammer stepping in their tracks by the words of Demirius, Sarenrae's grief himself. With Triaxis' influence temporarily quelled, the Serenites walked away, guilt in their hearts, and a lesson learned. Frag, having discovered that he could probably do more good here than with Lux Et Umbra, decided to stay back to help out with the Crooked Toes. A feast and a toast was had in Frag's honor as the day ended. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 8, Fathoms Below. Last time, Lux Et Umbra set off from Absalom towards the deserts of Osirion. Renting a nondescript paddleboat, they crossed the bay to a small, secluded, trash-filled island. From there, Zavid summoned 3 incredible steeds, a giant horned owl, a massive armored mole, and of course Rot Trot, bearing his new badass bat wings. As they soared across the remaining stretch of the inner sea, Lux Et Umbra was accosted by flying raiders on Dracolisk back. Khan was first to be blinded by the smoke breath of these creatures, but Reese's quick action and Zavid's shadowy magic gave her back her faculties. Amidst the chaos of battle, Zavid realized the riders were mindless undead, much to his joy. However, from behind, one of the airborne skeletons absconded with his magical staff. Giving chase, Reese put his expert tracking skills to work. Near a lighthouse, the skeletal raider disappeared. After a short search, Lux Et Umbra discovered a cave beneath their feet. Within was a strange cove filled with coconuts, caged dracolisks, and 4 skeletal pirates. Zavid, being the benevolent necromancer he is, offered aid to the Skellywags. A curse had been placed upon them when their ship ran aground, keeping them confined within the cove. Captain Susie McGraw raised and trained the local dracolisks, as Bosun Jawless Jimmy raised mindless skeletons to ride them, and navigator twins Jean-Bart and Francois Le Debonair grew the coconuts eaten by the beasts. In exchange for giving them their freedom, Zavid haggled for a baby Dracolisk, a future favor, and the bones of a long-dead sea dragon. After saying goodbye to the Skellywags, Khan and Reese assisted Zavid in a day-long ritual, which culminated in the power of undeath being breathed into the gills of a truly powerful ally. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 9. Are you good lich or a bad lich? Last time, Lux Et Umbra left the pirate cove beneath the Hor-Aha lighthouse. Their newly raised skeletal sea dragon friend, Cecilikash, agreed to lead them to his hoard as a reward for giving him a second chance at unlife. Cutting through the water upon Cecil and Rot-Trot, several scuttled ships came into view. The coast of Graves is a well-known locus for abandoned and sunken ships. Beneath the surface, a deep blue hole was bordered with a cleanly bisected boat. Not wanting to take any chances, Khan and Zavid cobbled together a watertight bottled lightning and hurled it down the pit. A moment later, a massive bobbit worm erupted from below, jaws gnashing. However, Lux Et Umbra made quick work of the disgusting, opportunistic predator. Down, down they sank into the darkness below. Khan showed off the light spell her familiar pipette recently taught to her to help everyone see better. Within the cavern was piles and piles of glittering gold, gems, statuary, and 2 elaborately decorated boats. After some investigation, and a little magic, Reese discovered that these were the funerary boats of an ancient pharaoh named Ma'at. Much to Reese's shock, the labyrinth he dreaded seeing so much was built by this very dead royal. With her Jinn allies of all elements, Ma'at raised the city of Shimon Sek from the sands to protect an imprisoned creature named Zalishkar. Evidence began to pile up that Reese's adopted father, the Goblin King, was not all he claimed. Signs point to him perhaps being an Ifriti, a fire genie charged with the protection of the labyrinth. Needing more answers, Zavid began a ritual to resurrect Ma'at, not realizing that she was not truly dead. As her soul rushed from the golden death mask into her body, Zavid realized that Ma'at was indeed a lich. Thankful to the group, the pharaoh and self-described God King offered much useful information about Shimon Sek and the labyrinth beneath. Wanting to get back onto dry land, Lux Et Umbra, Ma'at, and Cecil swam up and out. Upon the horizon are the golden domes of the Lotus Palace of Shimon Sek and the massive wind wall that stands between. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 10, The Amazing Maze. Last time, Lux Et Umbra hatched a plan to enter the city of Shimon Sek. In order to infiltrate the Lotus Palace, home of Rhys's father, the Goblin King, a royal distraction was created. Zavid and Ma'at raised 50 spirits from the desert sands and molded them into a parade of serpents. At dawn, the wind wall of Shimon Sek loomed high, but thankfully, Lux Et Umbra had an ace up their sleeve. Ma'at, using the Jinn magic within her blood, opened the powerful barrier before them. Trumpeters heralded the entrance of Princes Zavid and Khan, mounted upon a royal litter carried by leopards. The crowds of goblins within Shimon Sek had their ears perk up immediately, flooding the streets to see what all the commotion was about. As they walked through the bazaar, the spirit followers threw gold, gems, and bread to the adoring populace. Rhys, utilizing the citywide distraction, snuck away towards the palace and a small, loose sewer grate at its base. Inside the grand foyer, Lux Et Umbra was greeted by Major Domo Brahim, the right hand of the Goblin King, and shown around the Lotus Palace. Ma'at had warned everyone that the entire purpose of this castle is to distract potential labyrinth seekers into not entering. The pleasures, treasures, and temptations are enough to make all but the most focused and dedicated adventurer abandon their great quest. Sparring training, delicious foods, stunning dancers, stacks of ancient tomes, and piles of treasure meant for doing the backstroke. Keeping their wits about them, Khan and Zavid entered within the chambers of the Goblin King, with Rhys skulking behind. The monarch stood tall, with dozens of guards surrounding him, and welcomed the false royals. It soon became apparent that everyone was hiding from each other. Ma'at, the Song Pharaoh, revealed herself, forcing the Goblin King to drop his illusions to reveal his true form, that of a massive Ifriti, a fire genie named Balag Mahar. An emotional reunion was had between Rhys and his adopted father. After a brief explanation of the coming conjunction, Ma'at and Balag Mahar agreed to lend their power to Lux Et Umbra when the time comes, if they can destroy the evil deep within the labyrinth. Beneath the palace they trekked, quickly discovering the labyrinth has more secrets than was expected. Moving walls, tempting illusions, and vicious demons all have tried their luck against our heroes. What else awaits in its depths? Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 11, The Bottle of Binding. Last time, Lux Et Umbra continued onward within the labyrinth of Shimon Sek. Finishing off the group of succubi that had attacked, Zavid and Ma'at were freed from their mental enrapturement. Rhys, having destroyed the enchanted mirrors of temptation, passed the test of lust. The labyrinth itself magically spoke advice to look out for false treasures and more tests ahead. Further in was a room with piles of gold, silver, and copper coins surrounding a small well of water upon the floor. It was not long before Zavid casually tossed a coin into the well, making a wish. This simple act caused two massive Naufeshni, greed demons, to appear and attack. Though formidable, they had a key weakness. Throwing their coins down the well caused intense mental pain to the creatures. Changing their plane of attack, Lux Et Umbra began to shovel a fortune's worth of coins down the wishing well, until at last only one coin remained. The greedy demon begged and bargained for its life, ultimately for naught. The test of greed was passed. Tucked away in a far corner of the labyrinth was another wooden treasure chest, or so it seemed. A mimic snapped at Zavid, who found the creature endearing. Using meat and cheese, he managed to convince the monstrous trap to follow the group. As they walked, the labyrinth began to shift, separating Khan and Ma'at from Rhys and Zavid. Winding through the corridors, they eventually met up in a room with a large crystal orb. Pondering it for a moment, each laid a hand upon the smooth sphere. In a flash, the minds and bodies of Lux Et Umbra had switched places. Khan now looked out of Rhys's tall elf eyes. Rhys felt the rush of divine power coursing through Zavid's shadowy, pudding-filled hands. Zavid barely contained the thrill of being a blood-spattered swords rat. No sooner had they all switched places were they attacked by Invidiacs, envy demons. Their long time and as a well-oiled machine worked to their advantage, as each knew the other's abilities in combat, making quick work of the creatures. As the demons disappeared, so too did Lux Et Umbra flood back to their own bodies. Further still was a room with a grand banquet and 3 beautiful spirits offering drink. Zavid and Chompy ate happily as Khan nibbled cheese. Rhys sipped only water, angering and the disguised Nabasu, gluttony demons. Zavid's propensity to overeat came in handy, as the demons were pained as their food was eaten from them. With full stomachs, the fiends vanished to the labyrinths from whence they came. 3 tests remain. sloth, pride, and wrath, before the bottle of binding can be opened once more. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 12, Zalishkar of the Bitter Flame. Last time, Lux Et Umbra continued deeper into the labyrinth of Shimon Sek. The maze has tested their strength of will and arms, yet the test of sloth gave them a brief moment of respite. A massive fleshy dretch, a sloth demon, lay sleeping in a messy room. Deciding to attempt a less violent approach, Zavid and Ma'at began an entrancing song and dance, waking the dretch with the flute of Poke Hepsut. Confused at first, the demon seemed to enjoy the show, distracted long enough to allow Reese to chop up veggies with his Ginsu knives and Khan to get a stew going with her alchemical reagents. Though it nearly drowned in the hot soup, the dretch was content, thanked Lux Et Umbra for their hospitality, and fell back into a deep sleep. As it snored, snores echoed around the chamber, the exits opened up. Down the winding path, Lux Et Umbra came upon another treasure chest. Ensuring the traps were all disarmed, a powerful ring of the ram lay within. Pressing onward, an odd room came into view, but the puzzling scene quickly became clear. 3 small golden statues of the Osirion god Horus stood behind a wall of force magic before a carving of the lunar phases. A pedestal, holding a dozen carved gemstones, stood before them, a puzzle with a simple solution, but how to accomplish the ends? The statues were frustratingly incompetent at placing the gems into their receptacles, regardless of the instructions given. Zavid summoned forth a heroic visage of Horus himself from legends past to place the gems where they belonged, with a flourish of golden muscles. As the wall of force fell, the small statues transformed into hunched vulture-like Vroks, wrath demons. Having seen the attack coming, Lux Et Umbra leapt into action and quickly dispatched the violent fiends, sending them back whence they came. Upon passing the test of wrath, there's no H in there, onward they trekked, stumbling upon a magical decanter of endless water in a stray treasure chest. Only one challenge remains before opening the bottle of binding, in which lies Zalishkar of the Bitter Flame. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 13, The Wind Seekers. Last time, Lux Et Umbra continued forward within the labyrinth of Shimon Sek. Only one test remained before their ultimate goal, the test of pride. As they pushed on, a shocking sight lay before them. A roiling pit of magma lay beneath a wooden platform, upon which were the bound, gagged, and terrified visages of Veronique and Frankie Rizzolo, Khan's parents. A cloaked wraith levitated near a wooden lever, beckoning Lux Et Umbra within its chamber. Asking prodding questions, and knowing things about Khan it should not know, the wraith threatened the Rizzolos with a burning death if Khan did not answer truthfully. Through lies and half-truths, the demon attempted to gaslight Khan into a spiral of self-doubt, but failed due to her iron will. Having realized this, the pride demon showed its true form, having disguised itself as Frankie and Veronique Rizzolo. Lux Et Umbra leapt into action. The creature was laid low quickly, leaving one last chamber to seek. Wandering through the labyrinth once more, a suspicious noise perked up Zavid's ears. Thinking quickly, he cast a repulsion spell to keep whatever new danger this was at bay. It became quickly apparent the sound was a massive, hulking mummotor, a mummified minotaur. Ma'at the Song Pharaoh realized the mummotor was actually her pet Hapi Unk, whom she had not seen in 8 millennia. After a brief reunion, Hapi Unk the mummotor showed Lux Et Umbra to the bottle of binding. Within the bottle was a pocket dimension, stars stretching to infinity. The charred skeleton of a dwarf woman lay before them, the crystal prison nearby. Using their necromantic powers, Zavid and Ma'at spoke with the corpse to determine it was the body of Anyanka Jenkins, one of the adventuring companions of Reese's sister Adelina Guiltleaf. Anyanka was raised from the dead by Ma'at, giving much-needed information about how the Windseekers met their ultimate end. Taking down the time-stop spell she had put up, Anyanka aided Lux Et Umbra in rescuing the bodies of Gunnar and Adelina. The time-stop having been taken down, Zalishkar's prison shattered, and he hurled himself into battle. Though his attacks were fierce, Zalishkar of the Bitter Flame met his ultimate end at the blade of Khan the Bloody. Once out of the prison, the bottle of binding shattered, leaving Lux Et Umbra standing triumphantly within its central chamber once more. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 14, Seeking the Wind Seeker. Thank you so much for joining us. Now let's bring in our wonderful cast. We have Eldritch as... Last time, Lux Et Umbra emerged triumphant from the labyrinth of Shimon Sek, With Zalishkar of the Bitter Flame killed, the bottle of binding was reduced to dust. Rhys experienced a rush of emotion as Anyanka showed him a portrait of himself as a young boy within a locket around his dead sister's neck. Upon the back of Rot Trot lay the bodies of Adelina Giltleaf and Gunnar Gunnarsson of the Windseekers. Anyanka Jenkins had been raised as a skeleton by Zavid and Ma'at not an hour prior. Through her quick thinking, Anyanka preserved the bodies within a time-stop spell for the last several decades, so they were not so far gone as to not be resurrected. Lux Et Umbra began the long trek back to the front of the labyrinth, led by Hoppy Unk, Ma'at's pet Mumator. While waiting for a maze section to rotate, the God King requested Hoppy Unk be allowed to accompany his best friend Chompy the Mimic back to Shadow Valley. Lux Et Umbra quickly accepted the newest addition to their fortress's security. Within Ma'at's throne room, Balag Mahar, the Goblin King, welcomed the victorious champions of the labyrinth. The celebrations were somber and short-lived, as the bodies of Adelina and Gunnar were laid upon the magical symbol on the floor. Through a divine necromantic Osirioni ritual, the dead adventurers were given life once more. Recognizing her baby brother almost immediately, Adelina was overjoyed to see him again. Gunnar was thrilled to learn that glorious battle and an honorable trip to Valhalla awaited him in his future. Realizing that a Jinn's wish was owed to those who destroyed Zalishkar, it was ultimately decided to wish for Rhys's mother, Leilani Giltleaf, to have never become a listener of the Mordant Spire. Rhys and Adelina had a short conversation as Zavid cast Mork's Cunnin Sendin and put them on holophone. During the lovely family reunion, Major Domo Brahim burst into the throne room in a panic, informing Balag Mahar that the great wind wall, the sandstorm protecting the city, was down and all the earth elementals had wandered into the desert. In a flash, the illusion was broken. Where once stood goblins, now stood Jinn. Every denizen of Shimon Sek dropped the guise to show their true elemental forms. Wasting no time, all ran to the front of the city, confirming that Aukturn the Stranger had indeed come into alignment. Ma'at, knowing her plans had needed to be accelerated, granted Khan the honor of leading the Song armies during the great coming battle, Zavid the right to treat in the name of the God King, and awoke the sleeping inner Jinn blood within Rhys's veins. Lux Et Umbra decided to take one more rest at the Just Deserts Tavern, owned by a kindly genie named Tempest Vong. Much was revealed about Zavid's dark past, but Khan and Rhys accepted him as he truly is, much to his joyous shock. After a hearty meal, Lux Et Umbra headed to bed, Victor's taking well-deserved sleep before setting off into the glazed sheets of Osirion to find an airship, an underground city, and a missing princess. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse, everybody. Clearly we're a little squirrely today. We are proud to present Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 15, on Glazed Sheets We Ride. Last time, Lux Et Umbra enjoyed a much-deserved rest. The labyrinth of Shimon Sek had been bested, Zalishkar of the Bitter Flame killed, and the Windseekers given a second chance at life. Rhys stayed up late getting to know his sister Adelina Giltleaf and her adventuring pals Anyanka Jenkins and Gunnar Gunnarsson. In the morning, Zavid asked for everyone to gather for breakfast at the Just Deserts Tavern. Over a sizzling smorgasbord of meats and baked goods, Zavid revealed much about his shocking past. The cult of Cabriri in which he was raised truly had a traumatic effect on the young Kayal. Never being allowed to see the sky, forced combat against other children, and ritualistic cannibalism were but a sampling of the horrific upbringing Zavid had to endure. This reveal landed better than he had expected, for Lux Et Umbra and the Windseekers all voiced their support and desire to help Zavid overcome his deific compulsions. After breakfast, Tempest Vong, a genie and owner of the Just Deserts, gave Lux Et Umbra directions to the market square of Shimon Sek, along with the names of 3 master artisans. Nephrite Cragmore, a massive Shaitani Earth Djinn, helped Zavid and Khan craft a magical box along with several new weapons. The box was then taken to Ripple Melodew, Master Enchanter and Maridi Water Djinn, to instill it with cold-preserving magics. Box of Colding in hand, Lux Et Umbra paid a visit to Hestia Shortwinter, the Afriti Fire Djinn Tanner and Alchemist Extraordinaire. Khan used her Isoki wiles to get a great deal on the leathers and potions she purchased, with an extra little gift thrown in for good measure. Back at the Just Deserts Tavern, Zavid and Khan set about crafting the tools they would need for the adventure ahead. Arrows infused with elemental and alchemical powers, a mithril and quicksilver filament deftly installed within a longbow, Zavid continued construction on his staff, setting gems purchased in the bazaar. With their preparations nearly complete, Lux Et Umbra is poised to say goodbye to Shimon Sek and set off searching for a long-lost crashed airship. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 16, Whispers from the Past. Last time, Lux Et Umbra made their final preparations to leave Shimon Sek. Zavid acquired some less than savory currencies to help in the city of the ghouls. Stopping by the Just Deserts Tavern to say their goodbyes, Balag Mahar and Ma'at showed their affections for Lux Et Umbra. But Ma'at bestowed upon them the blessing of the God King to aid their fortunes, and Balag Mahar finally admitted how proud he was of his adopted son Reese. Leaving Chompy, Ankh, and the baby Dracolisk behind with their new genie friend Tempest Vong, Lux Et Umbra and the Windseekers at last set off into the desert sands. Not wanting to waste any time burning in the sun, Zavid used his shadow magic to stretch their travels to the distance of a day, but only within an hour's time. Along their journey, a most peculiar sight. 3 massive purple worms, normally solitary, were violently attacking a group of wandering sand elementals. Thankfully, being on the shadow ethereal plane, the worms were none the wiser as to Lux Et Umbra even being there. Onward they walked, until finally the shadow spell faded. Upon the horizon came into view a slowly whirling sandstorm sitting in one spot. As they approached, it became clear that this was the ruins of Zifon Ra, a mountain normally protected by the eternal sandstorm. However, the recent alignment of Aukturn the Stranger has whittled the storm down to its weakest point in decades. Within the sand-coated ruins were 6 goblins: Saeed the coffee farmer, Wulib the master silkweaver, Professors Sadie and Taffy, archaeologists from the University of Andoran at Almas, the guard Madame Guillotine and her hyena Shorty, and Scrapapple the desert wanderer.
Scrapapple.
Scrapapple. Everyone's favorite Scrapapple. Working with the goblins, Khan in her infinite genius eventually figured out the entrance mechanism entirely on her own, revealing a spiral staircase beneath the sands. Down, down they crept into an ancient tomb not seen by those from the surface in countless millennia. Carefully they crept, avoiding dangerous ground and pitfalls, using the sum total of their tomb raiding skills. Scouting ahead, Khan discovered a teleportation stone, taking Lux Et Umbra to the highest peak of Zifon Ra. A truly massive metal chain attached to the side of the mountain, anchored to a floating island within the sand-filled clouds, is all that stands between Lux Et Umbra and the Windseeker. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 17, Secrets of Zifon Ra. Last time, Lux Et Umbra's players were sent into the Endless Void. Their sight returned, they were in the realm of the great Baba Yaga, the ancient fortune-teller. Before her lay cards with the faces of Galarian's deities. She bade them choose a representative to flip a card. Eldritch was chosen, and in turn she overturned Shalyn, Lady of Chrysanthemums. As the planets come ever closer to alignment, more chaos can be expected. Where came in Lux Et Umbra was outside the crashed remains of the Windseeker, a marvel of magimechanical prestidigioneering. The ship lay unbroken and sun-bleached within decades of sand buildup. Reese's sister Adelina and her adventuring companions Anyunka and Gunnar could barely contain their excitement at seeing the old girl. Reunited at last, the Windseekers showed Lux Et Umbra around inside and set to work removing sand and debris while also planning the airship's restoration. Zavid, wanting to explore Zifon Ra further, beckoned Khan, Reese, and Gunnar to accompany him, leaving Anyunka and Adelina behind to continue working. Climbing down the massive chain from their floating island, Lux Et Umbra explored the mountain's summit. In a sectioned-off alcove, a startling discovery was made. A massive crumbled statue of the goddess Hathor stood above a truly powerful arcane rune. Zavid recognized what it was with shock in his eyes. A rune of Avatar, magic only rarely whispered of. Recognizing a potentially powerful boon when they see one, Lux Et Umbra contacted their friend Nephrite Cragmore, an Earth Djinn, to rebuild the statue. Returning to the depths of Zifon Ra, Khan stopped their new goblin friends happily digging through a cache of ancient Osiriani foods, wines, and clothes. Exploring further, a sad sight was found. A death cleric lay long since skeletonized on the floor, surrounded by their life's work, the mummified bodies of the workers interred within the crypt. Zavid found some tools and tomes that will prove useful in the creation of mummies in the future. Around the bending hallways, the passage was blocked by 2 sphinxes, asking any who dare to pass there to answer their riddles. Khan and Zavid, ever the brains, cracked the codes together. Beyond the riddle door was a burial chamber fit for a pharaoh. Piles of glittering gems, gold, and silver lay sprawled about the room, with immaculate statuary and valuable urns. In clear sight of the priceless treasure was the caged cells of the artisan workers who crafted this tomb. Further still was a library of ancient papyri, each detailing the First War. A long-lost secret about the key to Rovagug's prison was finally found. Its keepers had hid it deep within the future, at the far end of the ancient Osirioni calendar. Within a burial chamber were 4 sarcophagi, 3 of which contained mummified bodies. However, one was conspicuously missing. Its epitaph implied heavily it had been a Kayal in life, much like Zavid. Reese's unmatched tracking skills determined it had been dragged into an underground cavern below the broken floor. Delving below, the body snatchers made their escape through a teleportation circle, which they destroyed on their way out. Finding a dropped Kayal femur near the circle, Zavid took a small chomp, infusing himself with necromantic energy. At that same time, the screams of goblins rang out from above. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 18, Shade of a Memory. Last time, Lux Et Umbra was investigating the catacombs of Xiphon Ra. While within a cavern beneath the floor, they heard the screams of their new goblin friends up above. Swarms of scorpions and a massive black scorpion had burst through the floor. With only seconds to spare, Zavid and Khan swooped in and ushered the goblins onto the back of Rot-Trot and out of harm's way. Seeing that the little ones were occupied, Gunnar Gunnarsson went into a draconic berserker rage and ran headlong into the big one. Hundreds of scorpions were smashed and eaten by the sum of Zavid's magics. A wall of gnawing mouths and crushing feet of a skeletal Tyrannosaurus made sure of that. Khan meant to collect intact samples of the stinging venom, but may have gone overboard with the alchemist's fire. Reese, with his newly awakened elemental powers, burned away the straggling scorpions, pinching at the heels of the goblins as Rot-Trot flew them to safety. Gunnar managed to hold his own against the huge scorpion until it became clear he could see Valhalla upon the horizon. Using the magic of Cabriri, Zavid leapt onto the back of the giant arachnid, distracting it just long enough for Madame Guillotine to lower her long spear into a galloping charge atop her hyena shorty. Driving the spear deep within the scorpion, severing its stinging tail, the rest of the venomous creatures began to scatter. With their new friends safe, Lux Et Umbra retired to the Windseeker, the airship of Reese's sister Adelina. Great progress is being made on its refurbishment. The following morning, Lux Et Umbra delved back down to the treasure room, as there was more to be done. 3 statues of exceptional detail lie within the many beautiful jewels, coins, and trinkets. Using his divine magics and Anyanka's knowledge of the arcane, Zavid was able to bring the statues back to life with his stone-to-flesh spell. Each showed an immediate bond to Lux Et Umbra, a swarm of devil rats imprinting on Khan as their leader, a suli-blooded genie saber-toothed cat who found a mutual respect with Reese, and a fully grown ether spider that has agreed to take on the role of mentor to Zavid's baby ether spider Wisp. Their new menagerie in tow, Lux Et Umbra delved beneath the broken floor of Xiphon Ra once more. A teleportation circle had been crafted in the cavern and blown up behind the creators so as to disguise where they had come from. Though, having briefly spent time in Zavid's body, Reese realized that perhaps more information could be gleaned by looking at the magic rune's shadow from within the plane of shadow itself. All signs point to the city of ghouls beneath the Kilik Tura oasis. However, the Windseeker still needs repairs, and the floating island of Xiphon Ra still needs exploring. In front of a large pyramid was a huge statue of Osiris, god of fertility and life. However, as Lux Et Umbra approached, a cavernous hole in the shape of the mouth opened up beneath their feet, swallowing up Zavid and Anyanka beneath the devouring sands. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 19, The Wild Blue Yonder. Last time, Lux Et Umbra had discovered an ancient pyramid atop a floating island. The entrance was loomed over by a large statue of Osiris. As they stood admiring it, the ground beneath their feet opened up into a massive gaping mouth. Khan and Reese managed to dive out of the way atop their new magical mounts. Zavid, Rot-Trot, Anyanka, and Dahafrin were not so lucky, however. Landing hard upon the floor of a sandstone reliquary, Zavid and Anyanka pulled themselves back together and began to take in their surroundings. It quickly became clear that this place was old, far older even than Ma'at and her empire. An ancient defense mechanism was triggered and an adamantine golem began to attack. The Winter Witch Anyanka magically shattered the automaton's defenses as swarms of scarab beetles flooded the chamber. Normally skittish scavengers, the sudden ravishing hunger of the bugs struck Reese as highly unusual. Sand from the hole in the surface quickly fell from above, filling the room and making movement tricky. Khan, seeing a weakening within the golem's armor, ripped it open, allowing the scarabs to rip out its interior components. A massive, polished and carved black sphere fell out of the guardian's chest. Using his physicality-enhancing magics from his god Cabriri, Zavid hauled the orb into the hands of the statue of Osiris. An image of a royally armored elf appeared before them. Her language was guttural and unintelligible. However, Anyanka pulled the elf's language through time with her chronomancy. Introducing herself as Amon Da, the battle priest of Horus revealed she had fought at the final battle of the First War. Amon Da was a witness to the imprisonment of Rovagug, the rough beast. Lux Et Umbra asked many questions of the ancient warrior, and some shocking secrets were uncovered. In truth, the key to opening Rovagug's prison is not a physical thing, but rather the knowledge of how to do it. This knowledge was magically removed from the head of Asmodeus and sent forward in time with a protector, Queen Talandia Adasaril, High Archmage of Nethys and Dani's maternal grandmother. The key was then encoded within the royal blood of the Erion line and split between the 4 children to ensure the information was never all in one place. Realizing that Queen Talandia may not have been completely forthright, Zavid attempted to contact her via Mort's Cunnin Sendin, but received no reply. Trying to reach Dani gave the same result. As Lux Et Umbra began to panic, Amanda revealed a long-forgotten secret. Elves are not native to Galarian. They hail from the planet Castrovel the Green. The ancient legends spoke of Castroveli elves using powerful Magitech gates called Ayudara, which could transport them far and wide, even between the planets themselves. Back upon the Windseeker, the repairs were full steam ahead, with Lux Et Umbra's new goblin friends even helping out. Gunnar presented Zavid and Madame Guillotine with new handcrafted weapons forged from the body of the giant scorpion they had slain. Swearing a life debt to those who had saved him from an early trip to Valhalla, Gunnar added Zavid and Guillotine to his list of runic tattoos. Deep in the lower decks of the airship, Lux Et Umbra and the Windseekers spoke at length about the things they'd learned. Shockingly, Khan's 6-legged rat familiar Pipette had revealed that she is in truth the goddess Lao Shu Po given physical form on Galarian. Planning for what comes next, it is clear. Sarenulia Erion must be found. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 20, Unmasking the Masked Pharaoh. Last time, Lux Et Umbra had regrouped upon the Windseeker. In the ship's belly, Lux Et Umbra and the Windseekers discussed their plans going forward in Osirion. It was determined that the Dread Cabal definitely has the blood of Eredril, likely has the blood of Mythonar, and possibly has the blood of Dani Erion. Finding Sarenulia, the remaining lost Erion sibling, is of the utmost importance. When morning came, Zavid woke up on the wrong side of Triaxis the Wanderer, making him irritable and pushy against his new friend Gunnar. Pushing through it, Zavid convinced Gunnar to keep a wide berth for the day and had Anyanka make him some coffee. As he and Reese shared breakfast, Zavid noticed Khan was far more distracted than usual. Sitting in front of a chalkboard, Khan and Pipette were having a complex, in-depth discussion about powerful magics. This concerned Zavid, who pulled aside Pipette, the physical manifestation of the goddess Lao Shu Po, and asked if perhaps she isn't giving Khan too much power too quickly. The deific rat explained that all available means must be used to prevent the escape of Rovagug, including perhaps bringing Pipette back to the Mordant Spire, scene of her apotheosis, the location where the deity Akavna fell to Galarian, where a normal rat feasted upon godflesh, where a tower reached to the gods themselves, yearning for the stars. After breakfast, our heroes put the final finishing repairs upon the Windseeker and took off from the summit of Zifon Ra. Into the wild blue yonder they flew, sand dunes far beneath their feet. Searching for a lost necropolis would have been fruitless were it not for the detailed map obtained by Ilkana Alinor. Spotted off the port bow, Zavid, Khan, and Reese flew their mounts down to investigate. A pyramid-shaped necropolis was hidden among the dunes. Reese's quickly developing skill at translating the ancient Osiriani language came in handy, as it turned out they had discovered the tomb of Jetrieti I, the masked pharaoh, and successor to Ma'at, the song pharaoh. His epitaphs all warned that his reign must be forgotten and his soul must not enter Nephthys' boneyard. More legends from the First War were gleaned from within the tomb, and a few magical items to boot. Within the pyramid's depths, one last warning of carved stone stood before Lux Et Umbra. Coalescing his ghoulish magic, shadow magic, into himself, Zavid grew massively in size, ripping away the granite slab with his newfound cabreric strength. Within sat a massive lacquered wood sarcophagus trimmed with gold. Its lid shook as it was shoved aside, and the transmuted undead body of a jackal-headed pharaoh arose. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 21, The Tortoise and the Heir. Last time, Lux Et Umbra had opened the sarcophagus of Jetrieti I, the masked pharaoh. With cappuccino pumping through her veins, Khan leapt into battle in a blur.
I forgot about that!
Yeah, it was amazing. And you rolled a 50 on your initiative. It was insane.
It was so good.
Yeah. So she leapt into battle in a blur. Zavid slashed his massive ghoulish claws at the undead prophet, but his new size threw him off balance. During the fray, Jetrieti's council teleported into the combat to try and stop his release back into the world. Rhys and his sister Adelina put the hammer down on the pharaohs as Jetrieti turned into sand and attempted to merge with his soul cage. Zavid gave chase up a narrow pipe and rended the masked pharaoh's soul in twain with necromantic magic. With the threat of Jetrieti's return abated, the Council of Mummy Lords guarding his tomb finally found rest. Inside the pyramid's apex lie the ritual canopic jars of Osirion, as well as a large, flawless axiatite crystal, or jewel, pure crystallized law. Having erased every last trace of the existence of Jetrieti I, Lux Et Umbra made their way back to the surface, where waited the Windseeker and their newest friends. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 22, Monhatnus the Ancient. Last time, Lux Et Umbra rested up upon the Windseeker. During his nightly studies, Zavid communed with his god Cabriri. The patron of ghouls had informed Zavid that their enemy had made a mistake. Urgathoa, the pallid princess, had left her domain of bloodrot within Abaddon. Upon her throne, she secretly left her shadow to rule in her stead. Cabriri has charged Zavid with slaying the shadow of Urgathoa, thus weakening the goddess of undeath for the approaching conjunction. In addition, Zavid was gifted the ability to communicate with others even across planetary distances, which he used to great effect. It has been confirmed that Queen Daniela is indeed on the planet of Castrovel the Green with her brother Eredril, grandmother Talandia, and the Druman Queensguard Sir Demirius Altherona. Many secrets still abound, as the enemy has ears within every wall. The following morning, Lux Et Umbra set out upon the Windseeker to attempt to get good and lost. At noon, Gunnar set the airship down within a nondescript sea of sand dunes. To confuse and disorient themselves, Zavid cast Shadow Walk, bringing everyone within the shadow plane to lengthen their strides. From here, Rhys blindfolded himself and attempted to listen to Khan breathlessly infodump about the advanced mathematics she had been studying. After several hours, the spell wore off, and the oppressive sun beat down as Lux Et Umbra wandered the desert. Thirst began to set in, as did delirium. Falling unconscious, Lux Et Umbra was woken by a frantic Khan, seeing a sandstorm growing above the horizon. Their eyes opened, bleary from the sun, were only able to focus at the last moment to see a furious storm in the shape of an elvish woman's face swallow them whole. Darkness. Then a splash of frigid water. Before them stood a dark-skinned halfling who introduced himself as Zenmo Greatshadow. As they came to, Lux Et Umbra realized that they had done it. They had been found by Monhatnus the Ancient, a colossal land-wandering tortoise. It became clear that there was a small tribe of halflings living upon the shell of this tortoise, each dedicated to finding lost desert wanderers and aiding them. As Zenmo showed Lux Et Umbra around, introducing them to everyone, Rhys spotted a tall, blonde half-elf out of the corner of his eye. Sliding over, he made a less-than-stellar introduction, causing the half-elf to become suspicious and defensive. After some prodding from Khan to tone it down a bit, Rhys revealed he knew that she was in truth Princess Sarenulia Erion, long-lost sister of Queen Dani. Once the shock of being discovered after a century in the Osirioni desert wore off, Sarenulia and Lux Et Umbra spoke in private. All the cards were placed on the table: the Conjunction, Rovagug, the Dread Cabal, the Lilac Key, and the survival of each of her siblings. Sarenulia, hardened from her years in the blaring sun and the scouring sands, agreed to help Lux Et Umbra in the looming apocalypse ahead. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 23, Ferrarius Propheta. Last time, Lux Et Umbra had arrived upon Monhatnus the Ancient, the colossal desert-wandering tortoise housed upon its shell a tribe of halflings. Known as the Malenki, or the Small Ones in the Osirioni dialect of halfling, they searched the unforgiving sands for lost and desperate survivors. Having saved Lux Et Umbra from their self-inflicted near-death in the Glazen Sheets, the Malenki were quick to offer food and aid. However, it was their half-elf guardian our heroes sought most. Lost for a century, Sarenulia Erion, crown princess and first in line to the throne of Druma, had finally been found. She is the last missing piece in a potentially Galarian-shattering puzzle. Once they had hydrated and regained their bearings, Lux Et Umbra revealed to the lost princess that they knew who she truly was, and that she was in grave danger. Sarah Landscar, as she is now known, was shocked to hear that all three of her siblings yet live, despite having been stolen away in childhood. Near a roaring fire, over several glasses of Pesh wine, Lux Et Umbra got to know the ways and customs of Sarah and the Malenki. As it turned out, Zavid and Sarah had a lot in common, despite their diametrically opposed belief systems. Both had been raised in sheltered situations secreted away from the world. That, and they both had a love for the sport of Akvoball. Played within a magically sealed sphere of water upon the tortoise's back, Akvoball is a much-beloved underwater activity. After a hearty breakfast under the oppressive gaze of Triaxis the Wanderer, the teams gathered. As conch shells blared to signal the game had begun, Team Captain Zavid snatched the ball. Working together like a well-oiled machine, Lux Et Umbra came out victorious, with Khan backflipping through the hoop for the game-winning point. After the game, Sarah offered a handshake of sportsmanship to Zavid, taking him off guard, knowing the mental will it takes to overcome the imposing effects of Triaxis. Their victory was short-lived, however, as Zenmo Greatshadow, empath of the Malenki, felt the desperate emotions of people in dire need emanating from the desert. Turning the Great Monhatnus takes effort and time, so Lux Et Umbra hopped upon their spectral mounts to scout ahead. Within the footsteps of Rovagug, a nomad camp lay in ruin. Slashed tents and broken defenses lie strewn among the dead bodies of humans and camels, vultures feasting upon their entrails. No sooner had they spotted a survivor did Reese leap into action, swiftly sending the injured woman back to the tortoise on Owlback. Zavid made a loud shriek to attract the ravenous birds to himself, while Khan popped the carrion-eating filth like balloons. All seemed to be going well, until from the distance approached a gargantuan, dire vulture. Wouldn't be Tales from Shadow Valley without tech issues, would it?
Hey, that's the perfect intro in. Hi, guys. We're back.
All right, welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 24, Jackal of All Trades. Last time, Lux Et Umbra fought off ravenous vultures in the desert. The scavengers had swooped into an encampment of nomads, feasting upon the dead people and camels. A huge dire vulture flew in from the south during the commotion to claim its supper over the rest. Catching Zavid and Khan within its mighty claws, the bird of prey attempted to eat them both, but only managed a small bite. When things were at their most chaotic, a stranger ran out from the sand dunes, casting a mighty slow spell upon the vultures, seemingly coming to Lux Et Umbra's aid. The stranger then freed Zavid from the bird's talons upon the back of Rot-Trot, giving Khan the time she needed to teleport herself onto the back of the soon-dead carrion eater. Reese made quick work of the remaining vultures with the aid of his lightning genie blood. Once the fight abated, it became immediately clear that not all of those eaten by the vultures had been dead at the time of consumption, a sign that Abalon the horse is now in alignment. Reese ensured that not everyone became a meal, however, saving the life of a young woman named Pushpa. The stranger introduced himself to Lux Et Umbra as Old Bix, a desert hermit who hurried over to aid the Uriba tribe. Zavid was immediately suspicious of the far too average human man before him, and gave himself the power of true sight, revealing a shocking secret. Old Bix was, in truth, Saint BX9, the Chosen of Cassandali, or rather, the exiled Chosen of Cassandali. Back upon the shell of the Great Monhatnus, all was revealed. The conjunction, the key to Rovagug's prison, and the extraterrestrial origins of Cassandali, goddess of information. In life, she had been an elvish scientist on the planet of Castrovel. To help her people explore the planets, her brilliant mind was uploaded to a thinking machine, whereupon she lost all her memories and sense of self, all save one, her name, Dr. Cassandra Lee. Saint BX9 was the only servant of the Iron Goddess to survive to this day with his mind fully intact. Shortly after her excavation from Galarian's icy north, Cassandra Lee and her other servants became infected with the Dread Virus, a corruption of her synthetic mind implanted by Nyarlathotep in disguise. As Khan contemplated curing the Iron Goddess of her divine affliction, she heard the howling of canines. Before an alarm could be sounded, 6 massive jackalwares riding atop even larger 3-eyed jackals bounded down upon the shell of the great tortoise Monhatnus. Jumping into the fray, Rhys peppered the intruders with arrows, sending several tumbling to the sands below to be crushed under the turtle's feet. Khan called upon her newly learned magic powers and redirected a bolt of furious lightning upon the ravenous beasts. Thinking quickly, BX9 opened a portal in a palm tree and beckoned all through. Using his trusty mount Rot-Trot to ferry the Malenki through the portal, Zvid ensured the last surviving jackalware did not escape to its master. The safety of Monhatnus is compromised. Sarenulia is no longer safe. However, the Lamashtuns have foolishly revealed themselves. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 25, The Scribbler's Den. Last time, Lux Et Umbra was able to take a breath. Their new ally, Saint BX9, or Bix, had opened a portal to his shack from the back of the great turtle Monhatnus. All of the Malenki, and most importantly, Sarah Landscar, had all been saved as well. Zenmo beckoned everyone back into the shack as Pushpa seemed to not be improving. Zavid's keen eye spotted something moving under her skin. In a flash, he scrubbed up and with the help of Nurse Softsun, removed a clawed parasitoid from her abdomen. Knowing Pushpa had been injured in a raid by Lamashtu worshipping jackalwares, Zavid surmised that the Mother of Monsters was making herself known. A little bit of deception was called for, it seemed. With the safety of the tortoise compromised, it was decided to send all of the Malenki to Druma along with a magical decoy. Combining a sculpture whipped up by Khan with Zavid's shadowy magics and Rhys's encyclopedic knowledge of the Erion family, Lux Et Umbra created a simulacrum of Sarenulia. Identical but different, the same but not. If Saretulia could fool those in Castle Druma, surely she could fool the Dread Cabal. After sending Saretulia and the Malenki to Druma, Lux Et Umbra and Bix set off, hot on the trail of the monsters who slaughtered Pushpa's tribe. Rhys and Bix combined their efforts to track the jackals back to their den. Within the depths of a long-abandoned ruin, Khan showed a newfound gift from Lao Shu Po by transforming herself into a normal rat. Silently she crawled, revealing a tall cathedral filled with jackalwares and massive jackals, a mad elf-man scratching Aslanti words on every surface, and most disturbingly, 6 heavily pregnant women with their hands chained above their heads. Sounding the squeaky alarm, Khan rallied the troops into a flurry of action. Sarah threw Khan upon her shoulders as Pipette's magic hid them from view. Zavid and Bix drew the attention of the jackal guards as Rhys slipped past them, visible but unseen. The Scribbler screamed in Aslanti, an ancient dead elvish tongue, commanding his underlings to accelerate the ascended births of Lamashtan monstrosities. However, no lock can withstand Khan's dexterous fingers, nor Rhys's rippling sword arm. Zavid healed the nearly slain gnomish woman with soothing magic as Sarah leapt into the fray, gun blazing. Bix was thought lost in a dog pile, but transformed himself into a hulking earth elemental. With magical repulsion opening an escape route for can these poor women escape their grisly fate? What secrets lie amongst the mad rantings of the Scribbler? And what in the 9 hells is Lamashtu planning? Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse presents Tales from Shadow Valley,
Whoops,
Season
secrets.
3. Yep. What?
What? I have the Saretulia art up. Whoops.
Not a problem. But
No,
welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 26, Kiliktura Oasis. Last time, Lux Et Umbra battled a den of Lamashtan cultists. Within his den, an Aslanti elf named the Scribbler had been breeding creatures to fight for the Mother of Monsters during the Conjunction. Massive jackalwares had been sent into the desert to raid nomad camps and kidnap women. Disgusting parasitic creatures were implanted within their bodies, a sickening blessing in the eyes of the Lamashtan faithful. Zavid's magical repulsion spell and Bix's stony fists kept the jackal minions at bay as the Scribbler was attacked. Sarah Landscar distracted the Scribbler long enough for Rhys to shepherd the terrified women out of harm's reach. Using her newfound control over lightning while under the reckless effects of Seeker's blindness, Khan used herself as a conductor, shocking a bolt of electricity through every foe. Though he absorbed the blood from the floor to heal himself, the Scribbler was no match for the full onslaught of Lux Et Umbra. Falling upon Khan's blade, the mad jackal bled out in the ruins he called home. Before moving on, Rhys took the Scribbler's magical kukri as a trophy. Deeper into the den, Lux Et Umbra found more writings upon the walls. In particular, a strange poem about the Rune Forge, an ancient forge within Urgathoa's domain of Abaddon. It seems the Scribbler believes it to be a source of great potential power. Behind a crack in a carving of Lamashtu, Zavid spotted a treasure chest. With the aid of Khan showing off her new ability to become an actual rat, a trap was avoided and some new magic items were found. However, pride cometh before the fall. As Lux Et Umbra swiftly made their way through a hallway, Khan and Rhys stepped on a pile of moss. As a cloud of spores erupted and cleared, two regular jackals stood wagging their tails and yipping at each other. While trying to figure out what exactly had happened, Rhys changed back to his usual elfy self, but Khan did not. Zavid determined they had been cursed and used the magics of Cabriri to return her to normal. Beyond still was a small room covered in much more personal writings from the Scribbler. He had been trapped down here, hearing the voices of Lamashtu for 10,000 years. The Scribbler was a witness to the Earthfall, the death of the goddess Akavna, and the destruction of the Castrovelli spaceship Horizon's Pursuit by a massive asteroid impact. What he had seen drove him mad, his death a mercy. Within his writings, he revealed the Runeforge could be used to craft weapons containing the souls of devils. Realizing that the Scribbler's kukri might be one such weapon, Rhys and Zavid decided to attempt to release it. A mix of shadow magic and a strong hammer swing later, and a large, terrifyingly beautiful devil appeared from within the broken sword. Introducing herself as Thazadorix, Lux Et Umbra attempted to ingratiate themselves to get some questions answered. However, nothing prepared them for the shock of Pipette, Khan's six-legged rat familiar, announcing to Thaz that she wished an audience with Asmodeus, King of Hell. Thaz agreed to answer questions, decrypt the Scribbler's poem, and would set up an audience between Lux Et Umbra and Asmodeus. With a knee-buckling touch of the cheek, Thazadorix returned to Hell and Lux Et Umbra to the Windseeker. Within the bottom of the ship, Pipette was questioned about her intentions. She laid bare her plans, centuries in the crafting. Lao Shu Po, goddess of the moon's shadow, will risk her divine essence to Asmodeus in exchange for the assassination of Urgathoa and her promotion to the right hand of the King of Hell. However, before Lux Et Umbra can march into the throne room of Asmodeus himself, there remain a few loose ends to tie up within the sands of Osirion. Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 27, Go Together Like Peace and Carrots. Last time, Lux Et Umbra awoke upon the Windseeker. Over breakfast, it became clear that Sarenulia had woken up under the heavy effects of Triaxis the Wanderer, making it difficult for her to work with the team. However, using a gift from Baba Yaga, Khan whipped up an alchemical concoction to snap Sarah out of it. Her skills will be imperative within the city of ghouls. The airship set down a few dunes away from where Bix had tracked the ghoul caravans, a lovely oasis in the middle of the Osirioni desert called Kilik Tura. Approaching with caution, Rhys discovered a group of ghouls and Duergar slavers along with 10 slaves chained together with manacles, taking a drink break. Discretion, it was decided, was the order of the day, and the group watched as the slavers moved the people beneath the surface of the oasis's pool of the water and not the obvious cave nearby. Khan used her rat form to swim to the bottom of the sinkhole, discovering a curve which opened up into a massive cavern below. Before moving on, a wild ruse was built. Rhys would assume the role of the foppish Prince Daymoon Morningstar VII. No, not the 5th. Don't get excited. Anyanka, his court wizard, and Zavid, his vizier and bodyguard. The beaming beacon of Sarenulia's holy symbol of Sarenrae would pose a problem, but not an insurmountable one. In a flash, Khan constructed a mobile fish tank, and Anyanka magically morphed Sarah into a hammerhead shark. After all, Prince Daymoon VII doesn't go anywhere without his prized pet shark Reginald, nor his rat and confidant Cornelius, after all. Within the spiraling cavern, Rhys noticed the air seemed off. Zavid was able to see through the magical hallucinatory terrain with the help of his true seeing spell. A gnomish woman was laying injured near the bisected remains of a couple of slaves and ghoul slavers from the surface. She was near death, but brought back by Zavid's necromantic healing. Introducing herself as Pebble Gloomenbloom, the gnome was quick to warn Lux Et Umbra about the vicious Grickatog, a parasite from the elemental plane of Earth which caused all the carnage they saw. Using Kayal's shadow magic, the group was able to bypass the creature with ease. At the bottom of the cavern hung 3 huge undead leng spiders and a gargantuan purple worm thrashing about, caught within its webs. Thankfully, the spiders were asleep, and the worm made so much noise and vibrations in the ground, Lux Et Umbra was able to sneak past them. From the corner of his eye, Zavid spotted a fellow fetchling caught in a cocoon. Healing and freeing her, Yemza was able to help the group sneak into the city. Within Nemret Noctoria, the party split up. Anyanka, Sarenulia, and Pebble headed to the slave markets to cause a distraction, while Khan, Reese, and Zavid snuck into Castle Nemret via a service entrance. The powers of Baba Yaga flowed through Lux Et Umbra, allowing Khan and Reese to hide within Zavido's shadow as he quaffed a potion of invisibility. Within the castle, a lowly ghoul was bound and used to lead the group to his master. Through the castle, the ghoul led the way, passing gassed and awakened shadow guards, finally to the throne room. Within was a throne adorned with skulls and the gassed priest king Kortash. Next to the king stood the rended shadow of Zavid's first friend Giza, a cruel insult added to the flaying of her body. And at the king's right hand stood Lord Karatz, usurper of the cult of Cabriri and the kingdom of Nemret Noctoria. As the ghoul puppet caused a distraction, Zavid snuck behind the king, magically releasing him of his binding, then dropping an anti-magic field right atop Karatz's head. Revealing himself at last, Zavid offered one last chance to the ghast who dismembered and corrupted his friend. Karatz refused this mercy, an act of pure folly. As Karatz slowly realized his magics were not working, Khan and Reese leapt out from Zavid's shadow. Can Lux Et Umbra finally turn the page on the last chapter of Zavid's past? Welcome back to the Bard's Playhouse Presents Tales from Shadow Valley, Season 3, Episode 28. Can you smell what the rock is cooking? Last time, Lux Et Umbra faced a ghast from the past. Within the throne room of Priest King Kortash Kane, their brilliant trap was sprung. Using Baba Yaga's magic, the group snuck past all the ghoulish guards of Castle Nemret, only showing themselves at the last moment. Khan and Reese leapt out from Zavid's shadow as the necromantic hold Karatz had over the Priest King fizzled out, causing him to flee to safety. Shocked and unable to cast spells due to the anti-magic field around him, Karatz began to panic, but not nearly enough. Using manacles taken from dead slaves high in the caves above the city, Reese clasped the wayward cleric of Cabriri to the throne. As Karatz swiped and bit wildly, Khan cast the greatest magic of all, stabbing him multiple times in vital locations, but not before succumbing to ghast fever herself. Reese snatched away the staff and spellbook of the false prophet as Zavid called down the true wrath of Cabriri. From every direction, the thundering voice of him who gnaws filled the ears of all in Nemret Noctoria. Having bided his time until the moment was right, Cabriri severed his connection to Karatz, removing all of his magical abilities. A sobering reminder to Zavid that the same could happen to him were Cabriri to catch him stepping too far out of line. The powerless Karatz could do nothing but hurl empty insults as Khan wordlessly slit his throat. When the coast was clear, Priest King Kortash came out from his panic room, confused but grateful. The mental stranglehold Karatz had over the city of ghouls lifted like a fog upon his death. Much was discussed, and it was decided that Kortash would abdicate his throne. As a physically weak but politically powerful ghast, Kortash is clearly more of a liability than an asset in the coming conjunction. A moot was assembled, with representatives from the main 4 castes of the city: the hereditary monarchy, the old money aristocracy, the living Kayal majority, and the small ghoul minorities. Healthy political debate was had over fabulously delicate and decadent fairy veal provided by Zavid. It was not until the Constitutional Congress was nearly complete that it was revealed the fairy veal was in fact created by genies. It contained no actual meat, but was no less nutritious nor tasty than the real thing. Trade routes began to become established within Shimon Sek as quickly as the slave markets could be dismantled. Having freed hundreds of slaves in the city, Lux Et Umbra returned to the Windseeker. Upon liftoff, Mythanar called Reese upon his ring phone, saying something was wrong with Zenmo. The empath was having a seizure, having felt the fear and desperation of none other than Monhatnus, the great tortoise on the back of which these halflings recently called home. Learning the gargantuan turtle was being attacked by the legendary rock bird, Lux Et Umbra knew at once what they had to do. Will their efforts be enough to save their tortoise friend?